I was in grad school over in Fayetteville, basically looking for a job, and I'd heard about a possible opening over at Batesville in what was then Arkansas College, is now Lyon College. And I had heard about this thing going on in Mountain View, so I made a run over to Batesville. I thought I'll just stop on my way back. Now I had been with a friend of mine, David Newbern, who was teaching at the law school at Fayetteville. We had actually come over the previous year to the festival, the first time I'd been here. And I was just taken with what was going on, walking around the court square, hearing this group of musicians and that group of musicians, and it was stuff that, I was just completely absorbed in it. And I worked my way around to, the east side of the courthouse, and I heard amplified music coming from the steps, which is sort of the featured thing was there, and then there were all those groups around. And what I was hearing was the Simmons family, Tom and Jean and Pam, who was all of, 11 or something at that time. And they were singing Bright Morning Stars, which is an old song that they learned from Albert Sands, who was one of those genuine characters that'll never be duplicated. And by the time they got through, I had an inkling that I might be connected to this place. So all of that behind me. I'd been to Batesville. I come by, and somebody directed me to where the work was going on, and I found Tom Simmons sitting in a trailer, which was the construction administrative shack, and he was explaining to me what was going on. And I drove back to Fayetteville, and it happened to be the particular field I was going into, without a lot of detail, the very kind of job I was going after, due to some economic circumstances that was going on. Suddenly there was a glut of people like me looking for jobs in that field, and I wasn't finding anything right away. And a gentleman I was working with over at the university knew about my interest in this kind of thing, and he wound up calling up the director of Parks and Tourism saying, "Hey, I've got a young fellow here you might be interested in." So I wound up working as an administrative assistant to the head of Parks and Tourism for a year, on the understanding that when the Folk Center opened, I would be up here on staff. And that's how I landed here as the first, they call it program director. Essentially, I was the coordinator with the music folks and the craft folks. And we organized some workshops. Bess Wolf, from the well-known in the folklore field Wolf family, and Jimmy Driftwood conducted some workshops, and I was in charge of that. So that was how I wound up in the first year of the Folk Center with a title of program director, which really didn't tell you much about what I was actually doing.
So what was Jimmy's role at that time in the Folk Center?
He was head of Rackensack Folklore Society, and of course I worked with him about who's going to be on the, we were scheduling 6 nights a week, and I guess the roster, to put it that way, of the Folklore Society was 40 people or more. So we divided them out into 3 sets.
So his society, the Folklore Society, provided the music?
The musicians. The musicians were Rackensack Folklore Society musicians. And so like I say, we kind of parsed those out into three sets that would do, you know, A would do the Monday night program, and B would do the Tuesday. You know, cycle them around that way, and that's the way that operated. And then at the same time, someone out of the folklore society would do the daytime music on the crafts ground. So we just worked out a schedule, the people who wanted to do that, and that's the way it started. It changed over time. There was a point later when the musicians and the crafters went on contracts directly with the folk center, with Parks, but that was later. That was more like 75, I think. But anyway, that's how we started that.